Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to Influencers Radio. Today we are going to be talking about something that seems like everyone is pursuing, is chasing, is after, and that is balance. You know, it's such a ubiquitous word. We hear that. I want a balanced life. And, actually there's things that go above and beyond balanced to where you can have more than that. And that's what our guest here is going to talk about, is about really what he's done is pursued and studies the alphas in so many different categories and areas, because he has had situations, had circumstances where he needs to find this stuff out, learn how to balance life, learn how to go beyond a balanced life. And what he's doing is he is mapping that out, and he's bringing back the map, and he's showing so many people. And that's why I consider him an influencer, and am thrilled to have him on the show today. My guest is Adam Lewis Walker. He's a #1 best-selling author, a coach, speaker. But what I really want you to know about is he is the host of the top-rated podcast on iTunes, Awaken Your Alpha. Adam, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Hey, Jack. Thanks for having me. And that's a great introduction. And I'm excited to be here and help sort of awaken people's alphas. And just if people are interested in pursuing the alpha and just up-leveling everything, then this is a good one to listen into, because that's what I'm always learning myself. And yeah, I'm excited to be on your show. Well,
that's what I love about you, and why I think you truly are an influencer, is your pursuit of learning. Right. That's built in. And it almost makes me think, as I've kind of followed you, is it takes me back to, Think and Grow Rich, about how that's really a culmination of all the elements that have made so many other people successful. And what you're doing is putting that together. And it's not just you saying, here's my secret formula or anything like this. You're saying, look, I've brought all this together. Let's look at it. You're learning, and here's what's working, and this is what's taking people above and beyond. And that's what I love, is that the whole Awaken Your Alpha. That's exactly what it is. So let's start right there. What exactly is that alpha?
Oh, that's a tricky question, but no, it is really, you're trying to have that balance. We talked about balance there, but it's pursuit of something you're passionate about, but then you're not sacrificing one area of your life massively to sort of advantage the other area. So, you're not really pursuing your career to a level where, wait a minute, you've missed your family. They say, yeah, thanks for that, Dad. You've got loads of money, or you're doing really well in your career, but I haven't seen you for about 2 years. So it's really trying to keep that balance. And again, you're not like I just listened to one of your other shows as well. You're not then going to also spend lots of time with your family and then spend lots of time on your work, your passion. And then, wait a minute, you're out of shape. You might be leaving or tagging out from your kids and your family because you're dying young, or you're not able to, participate in all the active things they're going to be doing. So it really is looking at the individual. And when people say, oh, what's the priority? The priority comes down to what is your individual biggest issue. If you rated, sort of like the 4 key areas of life, if you rated the key areas, body, your mentality, your beliefs, your balance, and then obviously your bank balance, your business, if you rated all of them and then one of them out of 10, and then one of them you're like, oh, that's probably a 2 or a 3 out of 10, that's the one you need to start focusing on more. Because again, when it's coming from my sort of teachers or sports strength and conditioning background, the easiest way to have the biggest improvements is to plug your weaknesses. So if one area is really dragging, really not up to scratch, you can just put a little bit more effort into that. You'll see huge results.
It is. And this is a problem that's haunted society it's not like something recent. It's, I think back just in my life, Cat's in the Cradle. We all know that song, right? That's exactly what he's talking about. Right? Is that missing the lack of balance in life. And the irony of all this is that through the years, technology that's supposed to make things easier has really made a way for people to work more, right? To do more and to get more out of balance.
Yeah, harder to unplug, definitely. They can get you everywhere. I remember when Blackberries were sort of a few years ago, everyone was like, oh, Blackberry's brilliant. You can, the office can get hold of you. You can work on the way to work and you can work on the way home. And then after a while, a few years later, it was like, oh my God, I can't get away from the office because they can get you everywhere and you've got to have your Blackberry on and all that sort of stuff. And it's just where do you draw the line? And especially if you're the pursuit of the alpha as well, if you're working, hopefully not just working for a job, if you're pursuing something you're passionate about, where do you draw the line? Because obviously it's something that you're very inspired by, something that you enjoy doing. So again, it's that work play line is hopefully a little bit blurred. Like I'm sure you love going on air and interviewing people as I do. Technically it's work, and where do you draw that line? Where do you switch off if you just want to give it your all and give it your 100%? You've got to have that balance. You've got to have the downtime.
And that's almost more difficult than people that, that have a job that they don't like. Maybe it's easier for them to unplug. They're more hiding from that constant availability, where if you really enjoy your job, and I know, I've thought about it because sometimes people label you as workaholic. Right. Yeah. And it's tough to think about that. And I think the best way I described it over my life, especially as I kind of unfolded this and explained it to my wife, is this is my Saturday golf. Yeah. This is my happy hour. This is my poker night. So it's not like it's work. This is also, I happen to have the luxury of really enjoying. And that makes it even harder to
completely agree.
To have that balance. Cause I know there's a lot of people that it's probably happened to you on occasion. It happens to, I'm sure, a lot of people that are listening right now, is they get in that habit of from bed to the computer back to bed. And they think they're progressing. They think they're enhancing their lives, when in really there's some very important parts of their lives that's deteriorating. So what are some of the signs of this that maybe you are out of balance? And after that, I want to talk about how we can go beyond balance, because I love the word you use, that limitless. But let's talk about kind of identifying that imbalance that a lot of the people that you see and that you've talked to over your pursuit of this.
Yeah. I just want to, touch base as well about what you were saying there, because if anyone's looking into sort of the podcast, since I my background's a teacher, since I finally quit that full time, and launched the podcast, I've never worked so many hours in my life. I mean, some people might see photos on Facebook or doing this and doing that, and I am enjoying it. I'm loving it. But if I put the hours down, the actual work hours, because when things have to be done, like you say, it's your passion. Like the number one thing for me, my podcast episodes go out 3 times every week, and I've never missed a show. And so if anything pops up, any problems, issues, no one else cares about that. And to a point, I don't. The shows have to go out. So I would do what it takes. And so, but again, it is hard because, like you say, it is my weekend thing. It is I'm happy to do it. But at the end of the day, other areas will slip. Like, if I find myself, the worst thing for me, if I find myself on my computer, even just doing the smallest thing, because I'm sure there's always going to be a reason this just needs to be done. If I find myself on my computer when my kids are around, that really upsets me, because if you're doing it once, you're going to do it twice. You're going to do it 3 times, because there's always going to be a reason. And, they're not going to put, highlight to you, oh, wait a minute. This is affecting my child. You're on your computer, or, you see a lot of parents on their phones, not giving their kids their attention. So when I'm around my kids, I suppose for me personally, if I find myself slipping, I've just got to do this little thing on my laptop, and it's around my kids, which I really try and avoid like the plague. That's for me is when you're pushing the boundaries, and it's not sustainable, or you're gonna lose out when it comes to your kids, for example, your family life.
You're right. And the next thing you do, you can look up and the time's passed. It's gone, right? And then and again, because I've got two young children, so like 1.5 and 4, and they grow up with their memories. Oh yeah, your head was always in a laptop or something like that, and a lot of times they might do something to get your attention, and it's not always a positive thing to get your attention. So
I'm not painting the picture. This happens a lot. It's very rare because I'm very aware of it. But everyone's always. It's easier to observe other people. I'm sure everyone's seen. Parents are just heads in their phone, which is basically their computer nowadays, and just pretty much nicest way to put it is just ignoring their kids.
Oh well, yeah. I can tell you right now. I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and I can tell you they were 3 and 4 3 months ago. Right. That's how it passes. and
exactly.
And it really is. And you go back and I can tell you there's no bigger regret than when you sit and think about the time that you missed that, man, I should have.
Yeah.
So
back to your original question. Sorry, I know we went off a little bit there.
Yeah, no, but I want to know what are a couple of techniques that you use to be able to be purposefully aware of when you're doing this and to make that decision to knock it off?
I suppose on a practical tip, scheduling is really important. I think. I mean, just as simple as like whether it's iCalendar or Google Calendar. Apart from the fact, if the sort of people I'm sure are listening to this and Awaken Your Alpha as well, they're trying to be really productive and efficient with their time when it comes to all areas of life, because there's obviously only 24 hours in the day. So schedule in time for your family, schedule in time for your body, schedule in time for your own learning, your own development, your belief, your mindset, schedule in time for work. And then once you do that, little things like this, it sounds obvious and simple, but you've got to apply these things. So for example, in my iCalendar, I have family things scheduled in daily, and I have, what I've just talked about, scheduling with different colors. So if you did that and then, for example, looked at your schedule and there's very little of one color, or there's a massive imbalance, that's a clear way. It sounds very simple, but just lay it out, write it down, because you might be spending more time doing something than you think, or you might be spending less time than you think doing something. So that's a clear way to, put it down. So you got to basically track these things. You've got to take stock of where you currently are, because until you do that, the hours don't lie, the stats don't lie. As I say, harping back to my sort of strength and conditioning days, working with, elite individuals, sports people, professionals, Olympians, it's all about stats. You can talk a good game, but then say, right, okay, put down what you actually did today. How much of your time was spent working? How much of your time was spent with your family? How much of your time was spent on yourself? How much of your time was spent on your health? And take an average day. You could do it today. And then you might be in denial and say, oh, today was a different day. We'll do it for a few days. And you'll see a pattern. If you're bothered about it, you might tweak it. You might change it. As we talked about, this is an ongoing process. No one is perfect. I am about the opposite of perfect even. But my head's in the right place. My heart's in the right place. I'm pursuing the alpha. And that's what it is. No one is perfect, but you do what you can.
That's just so true. And to put a spotlight on that, there's an old principle, what gets measured gets managed. And that's simply applying that principle is what you're talking about, I guess, is if you just simply measure what you're doing now, then there may be some things that come out glaringly obvious to you that you may not have noticed before. Well, that to me is a great nugget right there, because it's something that's obviously simple to do, but something that probably very few people do that. Yeah.
And you can individualize it. If something's important to you, then you put that onto your schedule. You make time for it. I think the first time I started doing that, my wife was almost offended. She was like, oh, I see you've scheduled us in like a work appointment or something like that. And I was like, well, yeah, because it's important to me. You don't want to have it on this. You don't want to let other things creep into that space. That's sacred time, you might say. And I think it's very important. And, that's how I go about it. And if something's important to you, and then a lot of people's excuses, I didn't have time for it, or I got carried away on this, or I just don't have the time. Schedule it in, make the time for it if it's important. When you've got time to sit down with a clear head and, work out what's important to you, schedule it in and stick to it.
Well, yeah, that's, I'm writing that down right now to start doing that, because I can see where that can have immediate impact. One thing I want to do here is you mentioned about your background and training and athletes. So I want to dig into that, because the one thing that, I've noticed in listening to your podcast is you're a phenomenal teacher. You really have a great way of bringing up the great things that other people have, because one of the things of your podcast is you bring people on to interview them that may have insights or ideas or things that make them successful that others may not. And that's what I love, is that you aggregate this stuff through your podcast. And it's not just you with, your ideas and your theories, and you're really bringing on people that walk the walk and have true success.
Thanks for that. Cheers. I'm just the doorman. I just bring them in and they do their thing. And we have some really cool people. And I tried to keep a nice international mix every week. I tried to have a nice mix of professions. We've had Super Bowl winners, movie stars, millionaires, half billionaires. We haven't had a billionaire yet, but money's not everything. We have, people from all walks of life. And I think it's like everyone in general. I think everyone's got a magic within them. Everyone's got something that we could awaken. And so I think everyone's got something to bring and something to bring to the party, basically. And so we try and get that out. And so hopefully it's inspiring for people because there's usually, I'd like to think, at some stage there's an episode where someone really relates to that person, their background and what they've been through and the struggles they've been through. And I like the fact that a lot of the people that come on, it's not been plain sailing. There's always been struggles, and success leaves clues. So it's inspiring for me every day. And that's how the origins of it come about as well. Because I was kind of doing this podcast off air, as in I was, this was something I was into. I was, putting the time, the money, investing in myself and going around to pursue the alpha. And I'm just passing it on now. And it come back to planning back. What is the perfect day for me? When you look into what are your goals, would you be happy with working 20 hours a day in London, for example, because I'm so close to that. And I have friends who are similar to this, 20 hours a day in London, having a huge bank account, not seeing friends and family, and just being absolutely worn down. But yes, your bank account is healthy, and that's about the only thing. So I went back and planned my perfect day. And this is trial and error. I've done other sort of adventures in business, I should say, where whether it's been classed as a failure from the outside, for me, it's a failure because if I'm working by myself and not interacting like we're doing now, it's not sustainable for me. I'm a social animal, and I like to talk to people. I like to talk to, like-minded people. So how can we work that into my day? Well, I've got a podcast where I actually hunt out some of the top alphas in the world, and then I get to talk to them just like we're doing. And so it started off with worst case scenario. I'm going to get lots of useful nuggets, and I'm going to have a good chat to them, and hopefully one or two people can listen and enjoy them as well.
Yeah. And and being able to see the insights, because a lot of people, they see that, the millionaire life must be great. And I've got to say, and it sounds like you as well have met a lot of miserable millionaires.
Yeah.
It's simply because of that imbalance. And that's what a lot of people come to you to iron out, to look, okay, I'm facing it. I'm a miserable millionaire. This is where I'm balanced, and you help them do that. And you're very good at that. You're great at that on the podcast. And I'm sure you are, in one-on-one situations with the folks you work with. And a lot of what that led, and you mentioned to it briefly, how you were pursuing this alpha for yourself, but then, something led you to pursue it and share it with the thousands of others. And I finally figured out, why you were so good at that is you actually have a background as a teacher.
Yeah. And, sort of 13, 14, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-old kids or young adults, they are, they don't pull any punches. They can be ruthless, but on the flip side, they're great to work with because that's a tough audience. So if you're
I hadn't heard.
If you're presenting to them, you've got to entertain them. They don't care if you've got a PhD in awesomeness. If you're boring, if you're not entertaining on that day as well, and they have a short memory. If you ever thought, you've not broken them, if you think, right, I've got this group they love me or they appreciate it and we're working well, and you turn up and you don't bring your A game on that day, it's all going to go wrong.
They cut you no slack at all.
Yeah. Oh no, none at all. So, that's my background. And, I suppose that's why I've got a lot of energy, because I'm just in them situations, sort of well over a decade in them situations. And if you come to work, or, you know, you're interacting with a group, a small group or an individual, if you don't bring it, it's almost like a shark smelling blood. Then you're going to have a very tough day. Everyone's obviously seen films or things where the supply teacher or the substitute teacher comes in and the group smells, yeah, he's off his A game today. They take advantage. So I did as well while I was straddling the two sort of environments, trying to be an entrepreneur whilst keeping my my transition. So being a supply teacher, being a part-time teacher. So I would go into, and that, you know, that kept me awake. That really, I got a lot out of going into almost unknown situations, just dropped into some really challenging environments. I worked in pupil referral units where they've been expelled from schools. I worked in secure units on supply where they're actually, you know, they're basically on lockdown.
The good kids, right?
Yeah. I've gone from both ends of the spectrum. You know, I've worked in private schools. I've worked both, but it's the treating everyone with a certain amount of respect, that you're turning up and you're going to bring your A game, regardless of what they're going to do. You're going to bring your A game. You're not going to, you know, have prejudices or judgments about people when you come into these situations. You're going in there, you're going to bring your A game, and then what will be. If situations go a bit wrong, a bit pear-shaped, you're going to deal with that because you've got the experience in these situations. And, you know, you can't, as I always said, some people get worried when, you know, there's a lot of assessment in teaching now. And by that, I mean, as well, there's a lot of assessment of the teachers, of how they're teaching. And a lot of teachers used to get worried about, oh, no, I've got this really bad class. I'm not going to, you know, and someone's coming to watch me while I'm doing this. Well, it's how you deal with that situation. And I suppose you can take that into life. Don't think, oh, I've got this, my life is crappy, or this isn't perfect. What's someone going to think about? No, it's how you deal with that. There's areas of my life that I need a lot of work, and I'll try and be as authentic and transparent as possible. And, you know, I would try and deal with them as best as I can. And it's always a work in progress. And I suppose you just gotta, from interviewing, you know, over 100 of these top people from around the world, they bring it every day. I think that's the clear thing. They don't think, oh, that's it, I'm the man, and then they chill out. No, they got to bring it every day.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that makes a big difference. I mean, if you kind of boil it down to, you know, what comes down to success and people that struggle with success, it really comes down to those few moments and those few kind of decisions and how they bring it every day. And yeah. I know there's a lot of people who listen and say, well, you know, this is great. You know, Jack, Adam, you're talking about, you know, just make a decision to do this, to, you know, stop working or do this. But but some people say that, but there's circumstances that say that won't allow me to do this. And I think one of the things that you bring a unique perspective from is you did this not just by making decisions. Oh, I need to better my health, or I need to better my business, or I need to better my relationships. You've also dealt with circumstances that were put upon you that it wasn't a matter of choice. You had no choice in it, and you're forced to deal with it. And this, I think, is critical to people being able to achieve and overcome things, because you had a fairly serious accident, right? That not only damaged your body, but also it hit you mentally as well, right?
Oh, mentally, big time. Yeah, I mean, I do think I'm a man of extremes. I'm either, you know, most of the time I'm really up, but, you know, my wife says a lot of times there's no middle ground. So I try to be a bit more level-headed. But I was a pole vaulter and athletic. I was big into my athletics, track and field. And so my PE teaching job was perfect for me. You know, we have basically, especially in England, you have long summers off, you know, 7 weeks off in the summer, half terms. So for the athletic season, when you're competing a lot, it's perfect. And generally, you finish, you know, you're not working late into the evening. You finish maybe 3, 4, or 5 o'clock, and you got time for your training. So the job fitted my lifestyle because I was not chasing the money. You're not going to go hungry. You're going to have your mortgage paid. You're going to be active. There's time for my athletics. And I was always wanted to go to the Olympics. And so I was pursuing that right up until I was 28. And I actually was having my best year. I'd had lots of injuries, operations and things. And it finally felt like it was coming together. I got a personal best, or in America, you call them PRs, personal record, that year. And I got into some of my biggest competitions, and I was really, you know, I felt like I'd matured, and, I knew about all my training, got all the problems out of the way. And then I had a freak accident in biggest competition, the UK Challenge final that I'd been in, and it was raining in the English summertime, as you can imagine, and it should have been moved inside. Cut a long story short, I'd never had any knee problems. I think I've been talking to someone that week saying, yeah, I've never had knee problems, all good. And I slipped on takeoff because the runway was a bit flooded. And it was horizontal rain. We was literally drying off our towels and with an umbrella over us before we ran. It was really dangerous because pole vault's dangerous enough as it is, but this was silly. And, I learned a lot from that because, I learned that, you're not invincible up to that point. I suppose that's a thing that comes with you. If you think you are a bit invincible, but you do only get one knee. I can vouch for that. And
I have two.
So look after them too. Okay. I lost my priorities. I lost perspective. I got into the mindset of, which is good for an elite sports person. This is it. Tunnel vision. I am doing this when others were not doing so well because they're obviously thinking about self-preservation, and this is very dangerous. I went very blinkered and was doing quite well that day, to my downfall. I should have reined it back at a certain point, and I just went for it. And that was the last time I ever pole vaulted. And that was, 7-8 years ago. From that, there's a big black hole because like you said, you're working on your passion, and it's, it fills your weekends. It's your hobby as well. My hobby was obviously, I spent a lot of hours training for athletics. So when that got sucked out, there was a big hole. And I was depressed, like properly depressed for a good couple of years. It took me a couple of years to get back level virtually. But from that, I diverted all of my energy from what was spent on training specifically for pole vault into, pursuing other avenues. And this podcast guaranteed would not have been here if I hadn't had that accident. So every cloud has a silver lining. And like lots of other things or quotes that people say, but it is true. And, they were dark days, and, I think but I'm no different from most people. Everyone's got something that was tough in their lives. And you can use it as a marker to think, if you're not there now, you're on the way up, or at least you're not there. It can get worse, not in a morbid way, but you've got to be positive for where you are at the current time, and you try and be grateful for where you are.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of the commonalities that I've seen in success, and you've probably seen it over all of the interviews that you've done, is the people that made a decision to take that, what some may consider insurmountable or life-changing in a negative way, circumstance, and turn it into something huge.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I don't. This is my story. I can't change my story, but again, from interviewing these people, I almost feel, I feel like I'll belittle myself here a bit. I've heard so many worse stories. We're talking about, at the end of the day, my health is okay to, I just ultimately I couldn't compete to a high level in sports, semi-pro or professional sports. That was it. People have a lot worse situations. I'm sure we're all aware, and people might be listening and thinking, what's this guy whining about? But whatever your situation is, if that's your life, that's your life. That's all I knew. And thank God I haven't had much more massive trauma or, horrible things happen to me in my life. And I hear stories and situations, I was interviewing, and I never assume things. I was interviewing one lady for Awaken Your Alpha, and I sort of basically said, what helped you awaken your alpha, or, tell us about, the journey. And it turned out she had been, she said, I had quite a tough childhood. It turned out she'd been locked away, literally kept prisoner by her father. And I don't mean like a strict father as in, he doesn't let her out much. Literally had locked her away and abused her for like 20 years. And it was like a big trial on, I think probably on TV. And it was like a major story. And see, I'm talking to people like this and I'm thinking, I've got nothing to complain about. And this is just an example. Everyone's got, there's so many interesting stories. And I don't think, and again, this is someone that definitely people would assume, they're successful. They've had it different. I mean, you wouldn't wish that on anyone, but, when you hear a story like that and she's fought back from it, and it's not an instant story of, I decided I'm going to do well. Obviously she had struggles, lots of struggles. But she's working on it daily, but she's doing very well currently. Yeah.
And that is, you bring up a great point there is this, it's difficult for you to come back with, oh yeah, you think that's bad? I had this knee.
I hurt my knee.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's, it definitely puts things into, perspective for sure. So the alpha, awaken, if people want to awaken their alpha, what do they need to do to find out more about Adam Lewis Walker and what you're doing? Because, you have the stuff that comes out of your mouth and the things that your philosophies and the things that you share, but also the fact that you're bringing these people, the lady you're talking about, there's no way that you could, share that same details and those same struggles and the situations to be able to bring people with all these stories and all the things that they've gone through and how they've overcome it is just a tremendous resource. How do they find out more about this?
Okay, so if you go to iTunes, just search Awaken Your Alpha, one word, it should pop up, hopefully. If it doesn't, let me know. So go to Facebook, Awaken Your Alpha again. Twitter, you see there's a theme here, Twitter at Awaken Your Alpha. And again, search for me, Adam Lewis Walker, on Facebook, connect with me. There's a public profile. If you feel, bold enough, ask me to be a friend. As long as you're not a stalker or a weirdo, I will accept you. So it's, but just go and listen to the podcast. I'd really love the one thing. I mean, there's so much resources on there, and I would challenge anyone to, not find. There's got to be at least one episode or one person in there you're going to relate to. So have a scan through, read some of the bios and just start with one of them. There's a 10-minute origin episode, the first one ever, just sort of where I was interviewed for another show explaining what Awaken Your Alpha is, but hopefully we've covered that. But no, I'd love you if you head over there, click view in iTunes, click subscribe, and then just leave me a quick review. That is all I ask, because, we've been downloaded in closing in on 100 countries now, tens and tens of thousands. And I only have, I'm not complaining, but I have, 30, 40 reviews. So the people who actually take the 60 seconds to just write a short little message, whether it's positive, negative, but so far they've been positive. I really appreciate that. And I know each of them people individually now, and I read them out. I'll give you a shout on the show, and I really appreciate that. That's so helpful. No,
that's fantastic. And that's a lot of people with their alphas awakened.
Well, I hope, sometimes, and again, when I'm struggling through, sometimes I get caught out and I'm up late editing a podcast for that morning, and I stick to it. And it's at times like that, then I just get that one message like, thanks for putting it out there. Like, I really enjoyed this episode. It makes a big difference. Sometimes I think people are thinking, oh, everything's shiny over there. We won't even mention it, or it's all glossy. But, everyone's, again, if you are having quite an easy or a cushy life and you're cruising, well, that's not Awaken Your Alpha. I'm not doing that. I'm not sitting back cruising on this podcast. I'm hustling. I'm trying to make it work as best I can. I'm trying to help men that come into, that put their hands up and say, I think you could help me out here. You could show me what you're up to, and we could pursue this together, and I can help them as well. Because coming this January, for example, I'm putting I've trained people in different programs, scenarios, but what I've been putting all my efforts into, and over these past 100 episodes, and just fine tuning the systems and working what I do on a daily basis. And the Alpha Ultimatum is coming January. It's an 8-week training. We're working very hard we're starting with their body, their belief, their mindset, so they can tackle anything that life throws at them. And, that is something, for men who are pursuing the alpha. If that sounds like something you're interested in, just firstly get over to Awaken Your Alpha, listen to some shows, double check that my accent or my voice doesn't wind you up after a little while, because if it does, you don't want to work with me.
I didn't notice. You must have done a good job.
I'm not Australian. I am from England. So, so go check it out. And I'd love some feedback. But if that sounds something you're interested in, we are taking, applications will start in December for that. And I'm taking on it's going to be very low numbers, and I'm going to be working very closely with you. And once I take someone on, I put a little personal pride in it. the worst case scenario for me is that I'm more bothered about your success than you are. So we definitely need to have a chat on the phone first to make sure that you are, you're up for this, you're committed. Because once I take someone on, if it doesn't work for them, I take that as a personal failure, whether that's right or wrong. It will piss me off if it doesn't go well for you, because you either can't be bothered or you're not sure. So we make sure that it's a right fit for us. We know what's going to happen, and then we commit to it. And that's something I've learned from all these alphas and my own story of straddling. Was I an employee or an entrepreneur? Either one's fine. Make a decision though. I was part-time this, part-time that, and it drove me insane. That's the hard part about Awaken Your Alpha. Deciding, having some clarity on what you want, what's important to you, and then going for it. Putting the pedal to the metal and just pursuing it. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the most common unrecognized mistakes I think so many people have, and to have someone that can, get that clear and eliminate that is probably one of the biggest hurdles to allow someone to go above and beyond and awaken their alpha as you do. And that's called the Alpha Ultimatum, correct? Yep.
That's coming January, and we're taking applications from December onwards. So I'm really excited about that because, obviously the podcast is helping thousands and thousands. But this is going to be, specifically for men, because the Awaken Your Alpha show, it is aimed at basically the target market. It all came from who would I like to interview? What questions would I like to ask? So the target market specifically is, me. So a 35-year-old man. But obviously loads of people listen to the podcast, men, women. We don't just interview men. Obviously, I mentioned a woman that I interviewed. So anyone listens to that. But this training program I'm doing, this is specifically for men who are looking to awaken their alpha, just up level things. And we do start. I'm a strong believer in the mindset and the body. I've always been in what I would class as reasonable shape. And just if your focus is business, yeah, but what mindset you bring into that business, so I'm just looking to up-level your performance in every way. So it's hard to quantify it, but you will be coming in a lot better shape and have a lot more clarity, and whatever your individual goals are, you'll be pursuing them. And it'll keep you accountable. That's a huge thing. I'm a strong believer in coaches and mentors. I have them. And just that accountability and rolling with like-minded people is huge. And sometimes it seems almost too simple. I don't like to overcomplicate things. I think some of the biggest investments or mentors I've used, they have less bells and whistles and fancy bits of paper or PDFs, and it's all about results and key questions and actually applying things to the individual and what is needed, not just doing it for the sake of, I better, give them a big ebook, or I better spend 2 hours on the phone with them. If you need 20 minutes, brilliant. If you need 4 hours, brilliant. We will do what's got to be done. But that's kind of where I'm focusing, results.
Adam Lewis Walker, an influencer indeed. Definitely check out the podcast, Awaken Your Alpha, iTunes. Find them on Facebook. Again, talk about keeping it simple and not making it complicated. Awaken Your Alpha, right? On Facebook.
And Adam Lewis Walker, as well. So, I hope to hear from you guys soon.
All right. Beautiful. Folks, check it out. I think you've seen that you've absolutely got nothing to lose to check out the podcast. It's a really, really good podcast, and he brings out the best in some really fascinating people. So definitely check that out. And until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.